Dan on the giving you. We should pull Dan.
Okay, start.
We're
whenever
ready?
You're ready.
So wait, so is Dan like giving you all the questions and he's like watching on the side?
No.
Oh, okay. We're missing Dan today.
Yeah.
Am I taking over for Dan today?
He actually was.
Hi Dan, missing you. It's the Dr. Hazen show I see, but we miss Dan Sfera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually make a lot of videos with the hair.
Yes, we're gonna have to like bring him back.
Okay, my name is Monica Cuitiva, and I have the honor today to be with Dr. Hazen. We're launching the CRC Academy recently, and I wanted to ask, since she is an expert in research, in clinical trials and research, I wanted to ask her how important is the CRC role in clinical trials?
So thank you for coming and thank you for having me speak. I see I'm replacing Dan Sfera today. So hi Dan, we're here live, Ventura Clinical Trials, Dr. Sabine Hazen taking over for you. So no problem, I got you back. So anyway, so back to CRC. Pharmaceutical companies hire CROs, as you know, which are the organization that is overlooking the research and that has monitors. And those CROs basically go to investigators like me and find doctors that can do research, that know about ICH GCP guidelines, that know how to run a protocol, know how to do the research properly. And essentially from there, the PI should be doing, that gets hired to do the research, hires coordinators. So the coordinator is crucial because the physician is really busy. So for example, we were talking before about Alzheimer's. If a physician is busy doing a clinical trial and bringing in patients that have Alzheimer's to try the new drug that can help the patient with Alzheimer's and advance research, then he doesn't have time to do the paperwork, right? And some of these charts are very, there's a lot of things to do. You have to like make sure the blood is done at a certain time, the vitals are done at a certain time. The patient is sitting, you have to monitor the timing of the sitting, you have to monitor the timing you're taking the vitals, you have to monitor the time of the blood work is taken. No doctor has time to do that while taking care of patients. So they count on coordinators. What are the coordinators? Clinical research coordinator, because they know how to do research, in a specific method, following standard operating procedures, right? So which is what we all follow, and following ICH GCP guidelines, right? So a coordinator is crucial. If the charts are not done properly, if let's say the vitals are not taken at a proper time or recorded, or the labs are drawn, but the time of the lab was not written, okay? It shows sloppy research, right?
That's correct.
When the FDA comes into the office, they see the research was done sloppy. It doesn't matter if the drug was good. If the research is sloppy, the FDA is not going to trust the drug to be adequately tested, right? So even though the end result is patient improved, the research methods were not done properly. Who does the research methods? The coordinator. Who overlooks the coordinator? The PI. So PI oversight is the number one thing the FDA wants to look at. They want to make sure the PI overlooked every single charts, that the PI knew which patient was entered and which patient wasn't. When coordinators take on the study and they don't let the PI in the loop, there's a problem. The FDA is going to see that. Also, when a monitor comes in and finds like a laundry list of 20 things that are wrong with a site, it's important that the coordinator acknowledges those findings and takes care of them, right? If the coordinator doesn't take care of them, then what happens is it gets looked bad again by the FDA agent that's overlooking that study, because then they're going to notice, well, guess what? The patient wasn't monitored properly because there were all these queries that the monitor gave you, and you never even responded to them for 6 months. So that's a problem. So that's why coordinators need to be trained super well to, I never hire coordinators that have been somewhere else. I used to. I actually had a very experienced coordinator initially when I started all this, and I was very lucky. And then when she stopped working because she retired, I started like looking for another coordinator, and I had just one bad coordinator after another because they were trained somewhere else that didn't really train them. So I decided I'm gonna go to a medical assistant school, and I'm gonna train them myself. So my coordinators joke because they call this Hazen University, much like what you're doing.
Yes.
I did at my site where I trained them from scratch. But and I told my coordinators this. I said, if you want to advance into the research world, after 3 years we'll train you, because that's Hazen University.
Nice.
And then afterwards, after the 3 years, we'll put you as a monitor with pharmaceutical companies, and you'll make a lot more money. And then you can go on as a project lead, and then as a whatever,
Yeah,
sponsor, whatever your heart desire. But it starts at the coordinator. You have to start learning research at the coordinator level, and you have to be properly trained.
Yeah.
Because if you're not trained properly, then you're giving bad habits to the next person and the next person, and then you never advance. Also, as you know, I have my coordinators are amazing. I mean, I've trained them, and the coordinators that stay with me are the champions, because I'm very, very difficult. I'm very tough. I'm the Ann Winter of clinical trial business. There's Vogue, Ann Winter, and then there's Dr. Hazen in the clinical trial world. And pharmaceutical companies know we're tough. Coordinators know we're tough. The FDA knows we're tough. But that's the type of toughness we need in research, because the end product is safety of a product. And my job is to make sure a drug goes to market, and I can sleep at night knowing that the drug that I helped the pharmaceutical company put to market help patients. When my sister took on Harvoni, which was a Gilead study for hepatitis C, I think she brought in over 1,000 patients in that study. And that was a dangerous study at the beginning to kind of like assess whether the patients were doing right, etc. She worked very hard with her coordinators to make sure the methods were done properly, because she saw from a phase 1 that these patients were curing their hepatitis C. So when you see a cure, it is your job as the physician to do everything in your power to convince the sponsor to help you, to convince the CRO to help you, and to convince the coordinators to do a good job. Because at stake is human beings that are counting on this work. So we have a lot of responsibilities in the clinical trial world, and we count on people like you to train coordinators the proper way, to educate them. And I'm here, that's why I'm helping Dan. Hi Dan, again. to get this going, to get this mission going, because too often I see CROs that are hiring, monitors that are, econ majors that have no experience in research, let alone know about cells or biology or microbes. I mean, at the very least, please hire a coordinator or a monitor that is a biology basis or health science. No, because if you're putting a music person in dealing to inspect my site on microbes, I have to start anatomy 101.
Yeah, that's
and I have to start microbiology 101 to teach them what is an aerobic bacteria versus an anaerobic. That makes my job super hard, right? And then my job's super hard. I get frustrated with the companies. I get frustrated with the CROs because they sent me someone that was not properly trained, that didn't know anything. And then I'm trying to get the product into market, but I'm dealing with these people that are like combative with me and trying to like show that they're the monitors instead of having a team approach of, oh, okay, Dr. Hazen, I don't have the knowledge because I'm not a biology major or a chemistry or have any,
I agree.
So
Another thing is like clinical trials or clinical research coordinators is not like a very popular
Right.
career.
Right.
And I guess a lot of high school students, college students, they don't know much about it because, I mean, and actually in the industry we have a shortage in research in every single
yes,
area.
there's a shortage of
So
coordinators.
that's-
Plus also, they're not paid to the level that they should get paid. And part of the problem is the funding that comes from sponsors, it trickles down, right? So you have the sponsor getting this big $10 million fund, and then he gives it to the CRO, which is doing their job, and they have like monitors that are making $100,000 to overlook the site, and then you bring it on to the investigator, and then the investigator has to pay for labs, has to pay for overhead, malpractice, all these things, and then you're stuck with like you can't afford to pay much more a coordinator, right? And also the level of training of these coordinator. You can't afford to pay a nurse, for example, at $65 an hour, because that's your whole budget. I mean, when you have a budget that's like very, we actually, we try to be very fair, but we have to work within a budget. And also, the big problem in clinical research is that people assume that the study is only 1 year, and that the coordinator is only 1 year job. But actually, so you take on this job where you're supposed to be getting paid, I don't know, I'm going to throw a big number out there, like 50,000, for example, right? And you're getting paid 50,000, you hired a coordinator, that's $50,000 a year, thinking that the study is going to last 1 year, but then the study extends for 10 years. I've done a study, I did a study for a pharmaceutical company that was supposed to be 4 years max. The study lasted 10 years. Now, there was no funds after the 4 years. We had to stay open for another 6 years, where I had to have a coordinator paid full-time to monitor and manage that study. That's very difficult. So that's why a lot of investigators only do research for a short time and then drop out, because you constantly have to revamp yourself. You constantly have to find new studies and turn around and keeping your staff going and keeping your staff happy and being,
That's true.
so it's tough.
So, what would you recommend to these new generations of students to get into the clinical research world and become clinical research coordinator?
Well, I would recommend that they get trained properly. So that's the number one thing. And not only train with the exams, because I'm not a big exam taker or believe in, taking an exam. Just because you take an exam doesn't mean you're going to be great at your job. So I would say, yes, take the exam, but then follow through with a physician or a PI or in a site or in a CRO that's going to train you, nurture you. It's all about nurturing. And I think ultimately, my greatest pleasure in life is seeing these coordinators that I nurture and then launching them into the world of the clinical trials as monitors. And then they come back, after being in Argentina for monitoring a site, and then they bring me back a bottle of wine because, they appreciated that I put them up there, right? So, and I think to me, it's that constant appreciation that I see from the people that I've nurtured and I put into the clinical trial. And I think that's important. That gives you good karma.
But would this be a good career?
Would it be?
I mean, what would you say to students that are considering
if they want? So research? I would say, it's a hard career. It's very demanding because you have patients' lives. It's also a lot of paperwork. So if you don't like paperwork, that's not the career for you. You have to be meticulous to the max. I mean, I think that's the number one thing that I would say to the students. If you're not that person that puts an eye on the dot on the I, and believe me, I'm not that person, so I could never be a coordinator, because thank God I have coordinators, because I am the person that overlooks everything and can guide, but I'm not and can find the error and overlooks and finds the mistake, but I'm not the person that's gonna just sit down and make sure every initial is in every page. So if you don't have that personality, then that's not the right job for you. If your personality is, yes, you can put, you are looking at everything, making sure everything carefully, and you're overlooking a busy physician and you can do that and take charge of that, then yes, that's the position for you as a coordinator. And then if you want to advance from coordinator to monitor to project lead, etc., because it all starts as a coordinator. I think some of the best monitors have been ex-coordinators because they know what it's like to be in the field,
from
right?
A to Z.
From A to Z. But the thing is, don't forget to continue your schooling because monitors, I have amazing coordinators that cannot get a monitoring job because they don't have a bachelor's degree. You have to have a bachelor's degree. The other thing is you can always take on a job as a coordinator part-time where you tell the PI, listen, I'm just going to work 2 days a week for you and I'll overlook everything, and you have to convince the PI that even if you're home, you're still going to overlook the patient because the PI has to trust you that you're taking on a trial. What happens if the patient has a cough? Who's calling the patient? Who's following? So that PI is not going to want to like have you part-time and going to school if you're not on top of it. So you have to develop that relationship with your principal investigator. I think it's very important.
Yeah, so the wall of research is just like, I mean, is the sky is the limit. You have all the opportunities starting from...
You have opportunities, yeah. And I mean, opportunities are, it's what you make of it, right? It's when preparation meets opportunity equals success, right? So that's the most important thing. My sister, who's the biggest clinical trial company probably in the world, who's amazing, Access Today Clinical Trials, is the one that was behind the cure and helped Gilead with Harvoni, always says preparation, opportunity, success. That's it. That's the way it is.
Oh, thank you, doctor.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good.